So I've just discovered something really cool, and it's another one of those synchronicities that we get when we have had our eyes opened, when we've had the scales removed from our eyes, when we have woken up, when we have gained insight into the spiritual realm. So those of you which watched my video whereby I speak about the iconography on my staff, I state that that staff has lots of symbolism upon it, and the main symbolism was the staff with the coiled snake. And I was saying to you that that's the staff of Asclepius, which was a Greek person, later became a Greek god. You see, Asclepius was in Greek mythology, but lots of people think that he may have been a real person also, and he probably was pre-Socratic. Hippocratic. Hippocrates with the oath, do no harm, you know, the whole medical thing. And so I told the story about the serpent wrapped around the staff is indicative of the procedure that he used to perform on patients who had worms under their skin. He would cut a little bit of an incision in front of the head, and the worm would have no choice but to emerge from that incision, and then he would wrap a tiny stick or he would wrap the worm around the tiny stick and gently pull it out without breaking it, because if he broke it then it would cause infection with the rotting body remaining in the flesh. And of course there is the double snake, which is the caduceus, and I also have a small silver caduceus on the staff. I also have the root chakra on the staff. Now this is where it gets really spooky, ladies and gentlemen. Now I found that root chakra symbol hanging from a bush on a route that I've walked 1,000 times. One day in the wintertime, when this bush it was a hawthorn bush, when it was bare, I noticed there was this stainless steel emblem of the root chakra hanging on a rusty chain of a keyring, and it was well in the bush, and I'm like, how did it get there? Did somebody hang it there one day? Did somebody discard it and it just, you know, managed to attach itself to one of the thorns? But I saw that and I kept it, and I looked on the internet to see what it was, and it turns out that it was the root chakra. And I thought, how befitting, because that is a symbol of myself being a very grounded person. And so it gets even more interesting now. In this book that I'm almost halfway through the first volume, I've got the second volume then to get through. The author is speaking about the symbolism behind Moses and throwing his staff down on the floor and God turning it into a serpent. Now apparently Moses was insecure about his ability to lead the people, and he was pleading with God for him to show the people around him a sign that he was the one that could lead them. And so God said, okay, throw your staff upon the floor. He threw the staff upon the floor, and God changed the staff into a snake. And then God said to him, pick up the serpent by its tail. Moses picked the serpent up by the tail, and as soon as he touched the tail, it turned back into a staff again. And so what it goes on to say in this book, that what that symbolism is about, it's about the raising up of the Kundalini. Because this guy, Paramahansa Yogananda, is an Indian guru, and he's very steeped in Eastern philosophy and Buddhism. And so he's speaking about all of this symbolism and the metaphors in the Bible. They're all pertaining to Eastern philosophy because Jesus came out of the East. He spent from the age of 12, apparently up to 30 years old, in India, and possibly a small portion of that in Egypt, studying with these Gnostics. And so that's how he learned all these Reiki things and healing things and powers over the mind and discipline and all these sort of things, because he was evidently partaking in temple entheogens, as well as being privy to the greatest religious scriptures on the planet. So what Paramahansa Yogananda is saying is that the serpent is coiled up in the root chakra. So I have this emblem of the root chakra on my staff, along with the caduceus, along with the snake wrapped around it, which is indicative of the staff of Asclepius, and also now, as it turns out, which I never thought about, the staff of Moses and the Kundalini rising up. The staff is a symbol of a straight spine, because you need a straight spine for the serpent to coil up around. And when the serpent coils up from the chakra, from the root chakra, it enters out through the top of the head. On the top of my staff, I've placed a skull. Now, why did I do this? I did it, and I put forward certain explanations. But you see, I've said to you that I don't know why I'm doing all these things I'm doing. And I'm conveying to you what I'm doing and why I think I'm doing this stuff. But I'm conveying all the time that I think there's a bigger reason as to why I'm doing what I'm doing, as to why I'm given the power and the energy to continue to do what I do. And so now it turns out that the staff that I created, with the little caduceus symbol, with the serpent going around, with the root chakra and the skull on top, is indeed symbolism for Moses with his staff, which is indicative of the Kundalini raising, the raising up of the Kundalini. Now, I am not aware of my Kundalini arising, and I think if it had, then I would have known about it, because it's supposed to be a pretty horrific thing when it happens, and for many years after. I've read reports that people up to 7 years, they really suffer with their body being out of sync and their minds being out of sync until it all comes back together, and then they become enlightened beings, and everything is in sync, and it's all fluid, and it's all perfect energy, spirit and God. And so then, not only that, but on the same page is this smaller writing here, and this talks about the golden ratio, the Fibonacci ratio. Fibonacci was an Italian mathematician and philosopher, and he realized that there was a certain sequence in nature which had a relationship with math, and what this math meant when he worked it out, that he called it the spiral of life, because he noticed that spiral galaxies, snails, nautilus shells, many plants and cacti and pine cones and all these sort of things, they have this Fibonacci ratio, and I've spoken to you about it many times in previous videos in the nature. I've pointed out how on a pine cone you've got one serpent calling around at one particular angle, which is a much steeper angle than the next one. The next one is a much lesser ingredient. So they cross over kind of like this. You've got a very steep spiral going up, but then intertwined you have the double helix, you have the caduceus, which is two serpents spiraled around, which is the spiral of life in duplication, because we have spiral galaxies and we have snail shells and nautilus shells, and we see how petals are distributed, and certain parts of cacti and a whole array of things. They do this sometimes in one spiral, but very often they do it in two. And so you get the double helix, you get the caduceus, as well as the staff of Asclepius. So, oh wow, what a marvellous, it's making me go shivery all over. Oh my God. It's these moments, you can still see, can you see that? It's really hot, and yet I've gone all goose pimply. You see that, people? Just all my legs are gone, everything got this chicken skin going on. It's still there. Look, can you see all the hairs standing up? What the fuck? Oh man, I'm telling you, there's so much more to this life than meets the eye. And so now I look at what I created, and I created something which is so vastly more meaningful than I ever considered with my knowledge. And so at this moment in this book, it is speaking about the power of intuition. Forget the intellect, it's saying. The intellect will do you little good. It's good to have a depth of knowledge from reading. And of course, I couldn't gain this stuff in my intellect if I didn't read. But I already knew it, didn't I? Because I'd already created it in the staff that I carry with me in special places. I only carry that staff in the very, very highest of special of places. I don't carry it when I go around the average realm, because it isn't befitting. It has to be within those vortexes. Now here's another thing, I just said this vortex, and in here it's speaking that the Fibonacci ratio is like a vortex. It's like when we watch the water disappear down a plug hole. It's like when we watch whirlpools in a water via a waterfall or some disturbance in the water. When we look at a hurricane or a whirlwind or any of these things, when we look at the spiral galaxy, along with all the other galaxies, is flying away. And so what scientists tell us about our own solar system is that all these planets, they're flying through space in a spiral, and if we follow the trajectory and path of each of these planets and the sun, we will see that as the sun, the main body of the gravity, which is being sucked apart, then all the smaller planets are trying to keep up with it, and they're in its vortex. So they are flying around the outside of the sun like this, but as this moves through space, they are leaving a trail of like a screw, the Archimedes screw. The great mathematician Archimedes, he invented the screw, people, which was then used to draw water up from a well and, you know, all different sorts of things. And so the Fibonacci, golden ratio, math, nature, God, it's all genius. And so as we learn about it, we enter into that realm. And so I'm still shivering now. Legs completely goosebumped. Oh wow. Wow, wow, wow. So, sitting here in a meditation, I read, I close my eyes, and I listen to the world, cutting out the sound of the traffic in the distance, and I tune in to the birds, and I feel the warmth of the sun, and I feel the energy of the sun, and I receive that life force from God, and I'm filled with it. And then I'm reading scripture, and I'm reading about God, and about God, Jesus, and being served. You know, he speaks in this book, but the vast majority of people are not interested in this stuff. They're not interested in intuition. Intuition is so powerful, people. And what's happened to me, probably the greatest thing since my awakening, is that now my intuition is becoming very finely tuned. I'm still very cerebral because I'm reading a great deal, because that serves me. But what happens is, when I'm gathering up that information, all the time I'm being shown, you see, because what's generally happened is, by the time I've read this stuff, I've already done it. Or on lots of occasions I'll read it and then it will become to my attention the next day. I could be reading about a certain something, and then somebody out the blue will send me a video, or I'll receive an email. Oh, by the way, Aaron, I just wondered, you know, whether you'd like to watch this. I think it's pretty cool. And then it's just, I'll go, wow, synchronicity again. I was only just reading about that yesterday. Now, I know there's lots of you current viewers who are experiencing these synchronicities, because you write to me and you tell me via email, and also you state it in the comments. This is what happens when we get into this realm. It's a magical realm, people, and it's oozing with God consciousness. And so when Paramahansa Yogananda speaks sadly about the masses, how they will never probably get into this vibration because maybe they're not gifted, maybe they're not genetically constructed, maybe their souls are too young. For whatever reason, lots of people live and die without becoming awoken. But when you do, you enter into a different cosmos. And so this is why I say this book is taking a long time to read, because that stuff has blown me away. I've only read this morning probably about 6 pages, and you know, because it has the main body of what is being wrote, and then it has all these subnotes, and the subnotes go into a vastly deeper realm of spiritualism, and also science and math. How they are telling you, how they are reiterating all of the parables in the Bible. They are pre-scientific, but they are so steeped in science. And it's just like the raising of Kundalini with Moses and his serpent. Wow. And the serpent is coiled up in the root chakra, awaiting for those who are, I don't know whether we can say lucky enough, because it throws you. But ultimately, I suppose, lucky enough. I mean, I think it is very akin to the dark night of the soul. Now, I've spoken to you and I've written about my dark night of the soul in my book, which was very, very intense for 7 years, but continued for 11 or 12. And I think 12 years, and I'm on my 13th year now, and I've only just come out of that level of suffrage. due to the complete turnaround in my life, it turned my whole perception upside down. It turned now it's like the earth is supposed to turn, you know, upside down, supposed to become inverted every, you know, 13,000 years. This is why this procession of the stars has a 26,000 year cycle, because apparently the earth goes and spins on its axis. But we spin on our axis. Our energy turns upside down, and then it has to recalibrate. And it turns upside down because it doesn't need anything that it learnt before. And in actual fact, if it carries any of that forward with it, it's going to be a hindrance. So to completely have a polarity shift and hopefully shake all of our previous knowledge, then that would leave us carte blanche for spirit to write upon again. And that's what it does. And that's what it's been doing for me this past 13 years. And it's significant that Jesus needed this 12 years. It's said that he went to 12 years in some books. But then again, it says in other times he went from 12, which is 12 again. So I had 12 years of topsy-turvy stuff. Jesus was 12 when he went into the esoteric Gnostic schools. We've got 12 months in the year, and 12, when we look into the number 12, is very significant in other realms. Oh, one more thing I will say is that on my staff I have this threepenny pence piece, and the threepenny pence piece has 12 sides to it. So whatever that term is called, I don't know what a term is for 12-sided shape, but it's 12-sided. And upon the front of this coin there was a portcullis. Now, portcullis, for those of you that are not aware, is one of these gates to a castle which comes down during a siege, and then they wind it up during times of non-war, of freedom. And so that coin, I just realised today, having the portcullis, which is a symbol of strength. Now, we could relate that to the powers, because on the coin it's a symbol of their power, of their fortification, of their, you can't enter, you know, their kingdom, their castle. You know, 12 sides to the coin, and then with the portcullis and the castle. What are they saying? What's the symbology going on here, people? But then you see there's always two sides to every sword, and so it works for them in our ignorance, but it works for us when we become awoken and we see. And so the way I see it is that I was born on the 9th, and number 9 is indicative of consciousness. That's the number for consciousness. Now, I was born in 1963. 6 and 3 are 9. So I'm born on the 9th, and the year I was born was 9. And I was born in the 10th month, which is October. And so, number 9 being conscious. And so I then have been fortified by my knowledge and wisdom of my spiritual consciousness. So that coin is a representative for me, for my symbology. It depicts my castle, my fortification, with my protection. The portcullis is my protection against evil. And number 6 and 3 is number 9 for consciousness. My date of birth, my power, my energy, which is inside of this fortification. Now you can say, oh, you're dreaming, awake and brave. You can say whatever you want to say. But what I'm saying is, for me, that is intuitive, exactly right. And not only am I thinking some of this stuff myself, I'm being told every time I read this stuff, every time that this stuff comes my way. And somebody says to me, wow, that's a thick book, and it's only one of two. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Because if you are on the path, then you're going to read, whether it's a little bit each day, which I do these days, or whether it was a lot, which I did some time ago. I would read for 12 hours a day. Now I'm reading stuff which only warrants. I couldn't read this stuff for 12 hours a day. It would entail too much information. I can only do 1 hour a day. And 1 hour a day is enough, because then I've got the next 23 hours to think about it. And to archive it, to assimilate it. It's powerful. Oh, wow, 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 wow. Well, you know, shell shock. There's another synchronicity. Yesterday I went into battle, and it's apparent that I'm shell shocked today, because now I just went all shaky and all goose pimply, and I'm losing my mind. What the fuck? But in a good way. In a beautiful way. And it feels so emancipating. It feels so empowering. And then the downloads come about the portcullis and about that 12-sided symbol with the year of print, mint on it, and how it's all related to me, telling me, showing me what I am. Now, this stuff may not mean anything to you. You will have to find your own way through this life. You'll have to find what symbolism works for you, because you wouldn't be born in the 9th year, on the 9th day. You'd have other numbers. So you look at what those other numbers mean in numerology and Fibonacci and all the rest of it. And you intuit all this, and you meditate on it, and then you'll realize, and then you'll start to feel the power of your own essence. So, wow. You know, when I first started meditating, I would get things like this 5 times a day. I'd just be making video after video after video, because as soon as I started to meditate, I was so into it. I was like a duck taken to water. On the first time I closed my eyes to meditate, I was just there. It was what I've been waiting for, what my unconscious has been waiting for all this time. And it's like, oh, there's something there which said, finally, welcome, Aaron. We've been waiting 45 years for you to make this realization. But you see, we can't make these realizations, I don't think, until we are pretty long in the tooth. And this is why Carl Jung claimed that it's the second part of our lives, if we're fortunate to live long enough, past the age of 50, when all of a sudden we'll come into our own, because we will have this polar shift, we will have this awakening, and then we've got all this time, the rest of our lives, to contemplate on it, and we're not drawn away, our energy is not stolen by slavery. And so we've got all these hours of the day and night to put into it and extract the wisdom and the life force from it. And so I wasn't ready before I was ready, and you people wouldn't have been or aren't, whatever's the case. When you're ready, it'll let you know. And so it's like what they say about meditating. When people tell you all these wonderful things about what happens with meditation, and you know, I've been speaking about it for years, all of the downloads, I'll have a meditation and all of a sudden I'll be talking for an hour and a half, or you know, excitedly, passionately, with what I've been downloaded, uploaded, imparted, whatever. But the revelations, the things, and this has been happening for all these years. Can you imagine? And it's not stopping. The revelations are getting deeper and richer and more profound. And that's why I'm convinced that I'm heading for something. And I'm not trying to create whatever that is. Whatever it is, it is. Who knows what it's going to be? But I'm open to it, I welcome it, and I'm just going with the flow, with no resistance. And I'm speaking about this stuff as it happens to me, because my life, my book, all the things I speak about is about my experience. And so some people have said in the past, oh, your video's about you. Well, I can't make videos about you, can I? I can't make videos in good conscience about anybody, because I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know much of what I'm speaking about now. I'm just going with what intuitively feels right to say. And that's it. I won't lay claim to anything. I won't hold on to anything. I'll just let it all pass through. Pass through my body, pass through my consciousness, pass through my fingers. We're just travelling, we're passing through, people. We can't hold on to anything. So stop trying. This is people's greatest of downfalls. They're so afraid of loss that they're clutching with white knuckles on to life or to stability or to whatever they think they love and they have an adhesion to. Open your hands. Let everything pass through. And then all will be given to you. And if you feel anything like I do, you would never have had a lonely moment in your life, because there would have always been something there with you. And if you are the sort of person that's afraid, then maybe you are self-creating that fear. Just try to see what your life would be like if you just let go. So in my book, I'll be speaking about the power of intuition. I'll be speaking about the power of acceptance. I'll be speaking about the power of non-judgment. I'm on the chapter where I'm speaking about the power of self-hypnosis. How faith is very, very related to self-hypnosis and hope. Sometimes they can be a bad thing if people immerse themselves in the delusion, but other times they can be a good thing. If you don't have any delusions, if you are within spirit and you are travelling with spirit, but most people you see who have faith are the ones that don't have spirit. They don't have experience. The only way they could remotely know God is via their hope that they know God, via their faith that they do know God. But you look at these words like I've done in this last 15 pages, 16 pages, and it ain't finished yet, nowhere near. I've looked at what faith and belief and hope and self-hypnosis and human psychology is. I'm looking at all this stuff and what it means. And if you're interested in that, you'll read the book. And so it's an amazing journey. And so I've got to calm the fuck down now. I've just got to become settled, because that was something. And so I'm going to sit here and meditate. And I would advise you to play this video back one more time and ask yourself a few questions and feel what I'm saying to you people. And feel your thoughts. Feel what feels right for you. Because this thing is a feeling.